Hello and welcome, friends. This is my SPARC video of the Hero Arts January My Monthly Hero Kit. And this is a new series where I create 5 cards using one kit following these parameters, hoping to spark your creativity with a sketch card, using printables, getting a little bit artsy, following one of my recipes, and casing or copying and sharing a card or something inspired by another artist. So without further ado, let's make these. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of an unboxing, backed by popular demand. So customers, this is why you make a difference when you write in, because due to customer feedback, Hero Arts has brought back the My Monthly Hero and My Monthly Superhero kits. So this month in your kit, you will get a selection of color wheel cardstock. I've kind of fanned them out on my color wheel here. And then you get this mini note card die set, which is complete with like an actual real envelope that you can create and an actual little note card, which when I saw this, the first thing I thought was you could maybe punch a hole through that envelope and put some twine through it or ribbon and attach it to a gift bag. There's also like little accessories like the little tiny postage stamp, all to scale, like a little wax seal, all that good stuff. And I think that's really, really darling. I would be inclined to use it as like a little gift tag almost on a bag. So then we have this post box die set, which has another envelope, and it's the same size actually as the folded envelope, but this one's just like the envelope without it's not a fully formed envelope, so you could actually use it to layer onto the other one if you wanted the extra slit, and if you wanted the look of an open envelope, I think that would be really cute. This has everything that you would need to create like a mailbox, little birds and flowers as decorations, a rolled up newspaper, lots of little details which make it super great. Then you have the special delivery stamp and coordinating die. Again, this has another style of mailbox, complete with like that wooden post that would go into the ground. You've got this blank postage stamp frame, which I really like because you could put anything that you want in there. And lots of the stamps in this set and even the dies, they would fit into that little frame there. And of course, you do get the coordinating die to cut out all of those things, including the sentiments, which I always really appreciate having coordinating dies for sentiments even. So that's really lovely. And all of the little details and flowers coordinate also with that post box die set. So whether you're stamping or die cutting, you can get a very coordinated look. So you get all this array of cardstocks, and I don't know if it's half sheets or full sheets because I don't get the full everything. I get the stamps and the dies. My guess is it's half sheets, but let me know in the description. I actually didn't look that up, which is my bad. But if you opt to get the superhero kit, then you get some extras, and these are awesome. So this is the postage frame die. Look how big this is. That's basically A2 right there, and it cuts out that postage border, and you have this cute puppy which has lots of layering options, and you've got multiple different stamps, postage stamps, so you can do the larger rectangle or the square, and you basically have 2 dies, one to cut that postage frame and one to cut basically what you want the design of the stamp to be. And the dog has multiple layers so that you can cut them out, layer them up, give it a little bit of extra dimension, maybe cut out of different colored cardstock to have a little bit of shadow, a little bit of highlight, and you can give your pup a little mail carrier outfit with a little hat and a little messenger bag. super adorable. And then the other little bonus that you would get as part of a superhero is the front page stamp and cut. So this is a pretty big stamp here. Love this. There's room in the middle here where you can stamp one of the other sentiments that they've included. But I think what I really like is that they made it nice and big. So you could actually, like, you could handwrite. If your handwriting is good, I feel like I would be inclined to want to like handwrite something there. Because let's say somebody is starting a new job at like a very specific, workplace, you could write that specific thing in there and really tailor this to that individual. Or let's say you got engaged and you wanted to announce it. You could say breaking news, today's news, engaged to, or, Bob and Cindy got engaged, whatever it is. I just think it's really fun that there's space there and you could write something in, but they have given you stamps so that you can fill that space with the other sentiments. All right, so that's what is a part of the January 2026 My Monthly Hero kit and the My Monthly Hero Super Kit, or Superhero Kit. So in my SPARC videos, what I like to try to do is create cards following, very similar to my flip videos, a mnemonic. So SPARC stands for sketch. That's going to be the first card that I create. And I'm actually following a sketch that is from Call Me Crafty Al, and this is one of her previous sketches. And if you're not familiar with Call Me Crafty Al, she puts out a new sheetload of cards sketch design every single month. And I think it's pretty fabulous that she's able to do this and she's been doing it for years now. So it's pretty incredible to be able to have that sort of creativity just on a routine, regular basis. Like, I don't think I could. I'll be honest. So I really admire folks who have that kind of creativity. So it turns out that this month, because this is a derivation on this month's sheetload of cards, Alicia is actually collaborating with another fabulous designer, Kendra of Cards by Kendra, and Kendra's Card Challenges. The sketch that Alicia is sharing is actually a past sketch from a Kendra's Card Challenge. And again, that's another great resource. Kendra is another fabulous creative designer who puts out a quarterly sketch challenge where she actually has 15 unique card sketches that she puts out every quarter. And Kendra's been doing this. We're up to KCC, Kendra's Card Challenge number 21. So she's been doing this for quite a while as well. And again, just so much creativity goes into designing these sketches, creating cutting guides, and Alicia and Kendra do that so beautifully. So I'm just being inspired by the sketch. I'm not really following the cutting guide because instead of cutting down a 6x6 pattern paper as Alicia recommends, I'm actually using this breaking news newspaper as that block of print. And that's one of the things that I feel when you look at a sketch, you don't necessarily always have to follow it specifically. And even if it comes with a cutting guide like Sheetload of Cards does, you don't necessarily have to follow that too. What I get out of sketches is just the idea of a particular layout. So the idea of something, a block that is put on an angle that it, falls right off the edges of the card. That is what has inspired me with this particular sketch. And so instead of using pattern paper, because that breaking news stamp from the superhero add-on it's so big. It's really, you know, nice chunk of not quite pattern paper, but it's a good replacement for it. And then I just added my little pup as an additional little accessory. So I love how that card turned out. Now, next up in my SPARC is the letter P for printable. So one thing that I have been doing, I just haven't been doing it for quite as long as the sketches that, the sheet load of sketches that Alicia puts out, or the Kendra's Card Challenge printables that Kendra puts out. But I have been releasing printables to my website in support of my Easy Wonder dies. And I do two different types of collections, one to support Easy Wonder die number 3, and that is my Easy Postage printables. And because it's designed to go with my postage die, I thought it would be a really great way to pull in with this month's monthly hero kit, because it's all postage themed. And so I'm just going to cut apart some of my printables here. I have one that is an easy guide printable, really designed to be custom fitted to the Easy Wonder die number 3. But as you'll see here, I'm actually going to use the dies from the postage frame die set. It fits. I can actually use the larger rectangular postage frame die from, this is again from the superhero add-on, and I'm gonna cut out the postage stamp designs that were designed to be cut with my Easy Wonder die, but it works here too. And at the end of the day, I create these printables, yes, to kind of give the folks who own Easy Wonder dies more things to craft with, because on launch day, I always put these collections out for free. And that way, folks who do have my dies can get something new and fresh to craft with every month. But even if you don't have my dies, these are just really lovely prints that you can use and craft with. So with the postage die in that postage frame die set, there's one die that cuts the whole thing out, and that's what I use to cut my pattern paper. And then there's a second die that cuts out that frame. And in my easy card making kit that I put out every month, I have solids and subtle patterns as some of the prints that are included in that. And so that solid red frame, that's actually from the easy card making kit from this month, which was not Hedgehog Hugs. It was Gnome Love. And I picked those colors very specifically, and even though these are coming from two different collections, they both came out in January. And in fact, what I'm crafting with now actually won't come out until the 15th of January, come to think of it. But I did want to make sure that if you get both collections, that some of the patterns and solids will work with both collections. And so that's one of the things I thought would be a really nice tie-in. And if you're the kind of crafter who really loves printables, I just want to make sure that if I'm putting out collections in the same month, that they are somehow tied together, at least a little bit. Now, I've got this really gorgeous printable that I'm going to use as my little note card. I did notice that the note card from that mini note card die set, it has a score line, but it's a very soft score line. And so even on thin paper, or maybe especially on thin paper because it doesn't have the real thickness to get enough pressure, I did find that I had to score on my score tool to reinforce that score line. And I actually glued this upside down, and I had to peel this off. Thankfully, with dry adhesive, Burnishing definitely helps, but it does still take like a good, amount of time, maybe 24 hours for a glue, a dry adhesive, or really any adhesive to set 100%. So I did catch it in time that I had adhered that upside down. And so I was able to kind of correct that. And I'm going to pull in some more of that solid red. Again, this is a printable, so this isn't solid color cardstock. It's actually from my printable, which I give you solid color like that because I actually color pick it specifically to match the other colors in the printables that are part of that collection. And so that way, everything, especially if you're printing on the same printer, everything's gonna look consistent. You don't have to try to find the right shade of red or the right shade of, XYZ color to match the printable. And again, that's part of the Easy Card Making Kit. And it's named that because I do like to try to give you everything to make it really easy to have all the coordinating pieces. So whether that's a really lovely pattern or a more subtle pattern that you can use as a solid or solid color, papers themselves, I give all of that to you. And my Easy Card Making Kit is actually designed to work with Easy Wonder Die number 1. Now, I took that mini note card envelope and cut it out of what was really meant to be cut by Easy Wonder Die number 3. And this is the vintage Valentine easy postage printable. But I just die cut out of it as if it was just pattern paper. So yes, it was specifically designed to be cut by another die set, but there's nothing to say that you can't just use it however you would want, especially if you don't have my die set. So definitely look at printables, even if they were designed very specifically for one thing in mind. You should definitely use your creativity to explore and find other ways to use them and get the most out of them. So one of the things that I thought would be cute is to line this envelope and make it a little extra special because that white on the inside there is very, very white. Now I started to cut this red, which I think would look really good, except for the fact that my mini note card, it's actually red. And see how nice that looks? I think that would look so good, but I did realize that I intend to tuck my that note card into this envelope, and so I'd rather have something that will contrast it a little bit better. So I decided to cut the mini note card again out of this bit of pattern paper just so that I can get that more off-white kind of old paper look, and then that way when I tuck the note card in here, it's going to look better because you can actually see it. There'll be more contrast. This is the exact same die that is the envelope die, just shifted down a little bit. And then once that's in, I can just close off the flaps to actually create like a fully functional envelope. Except that I'm not going to actually close down that top flap since I'm using it as a decorative element on this card. But as I mentioned, I feel like this would be, because it's a fully functional envelope, you could make this into like a little gift card, a little punch a little hole through the envelope and then string it to the handle of a gift bag. I think that would be totally cute. So off camera, I die cut a couple of additional little postage stamp designs from various parts of my printable, and I pulled out the stamp set, the special delivery stamp set, because it's got fun little, like, I think there's 25 cent and then the year 1974, which I think is really cool because some of my images are kind of old-timey, and so 1974 probably isn't far back enough, but at least it's kind of far back. And so I also used some of those little stamps on my the little postage stamps that I made. And I thought I would add a little sentiment to this note card as well. So I'm gold heat embossing the word hello onto here, which I think is really, really darling. And it just adds a little bit extra something. Now, you could leave the note card on the inside totally blank so that you can actually write a message, but I ended up just putting more images from my printable on the inside there, because I thought with the whole idea of the locket on the outside of this little mini note card, I thought it would be fun just to carry that into the note card so that it's like you're opening the locket, and those are the photos that you're seeing there. Now, I did take this is a different die set. So this was the die set that came in the special or the post box, but you can see it's actually the same size as the folded envelope. So I'm just layering those just to give them, make it seem like there's more than one envelope, and I'll create just like a little collage of these little postage stamps, which I think are just darling. And you can see that with these little postage stamps, I really like cutting the design out and creating the look of postage stamps with just printed pattern paper or printables, which is what I'm using. I think it's a lot easier than stamping and coloring an image to use as a little postage stamp design. So when you craft with this, look at maybe your pattern papers, or in this case, look at printables and see if some of them might frame up nicely as little postage stamps. These I knew would work because I picked them for my easy postage printable, but you could look at any printable or any pattern paper and see what you can find that would work nicely. And yes, I am using my new We Are Makers glue squeeze. So far so good. I'm using my 3D glue gel in it, and I'm really loving it so far. But that's my card featuring a printable. Now the A in SPARC stands for Artsy. This is meant to really stretch me out of my comfort zone, because sketch cards, I'm part of Kendra's card challenge, and I'm on that design team, so I often play with sketches and really love them and value them. I'm using my own printables, so I'm very comfortable and familiar with that. But getting a little bit artsy, going a little bit outside the box, being a little bit more freeform, that's tough for me. That's a little bit of a challenge for me. It's one of the things that I would love to get into, is maybe doing a little bit of art journaling, and just to break out of the box a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is, taking the special delivery stamp set, I am going to just stamp out a random design. And what I'm doing is doing first and second generation stamping. So if I want it to be nice and dark, and I'm using a VersaFine Clear ink, which is really, really lovely, great for hand stamping like this. If I want something dark, then I will take the first generation stamp. And then if I want that same impression, but maybe a lighter version, then without re-inking, I'll just stamp it again somewhere else. So it gives a little bit more interest, so that not everything is flat, but it's also all one color, all one ink pad, so you don't have to kind of bring in another color just to get something a little bit lighter. And I picked some of the images that would fit, and the postage little frames, I intentionally stamped off the edge of the paper just to make it seem like this is maybe a larger sheet of pattern paper that I cut down, feels a little bit more organic that way. And for the postage frames that went off the edge, I actually chose little stamp images that I knew would not actually fit fully in the frame, like that large tall flower. And I used that because I knew that the bottom part is cut off anyways. So it's just a way to kind of fake things a little bit. I picked up this other Hero Arts stamp set over Black Friday in the hopes of getting a little bit more artsy, getting a little bit more into maybe some art journaling. And so I liked the text from that set, so I decided to bring that in. And what I like to do when I'm making a large panel like this is I start with the larger images and try to leave space to be filled in with progressively smaller and smaller images or stamps. And I'm trying to get a nice balance of, you know, first generation and second generation stamping. And also what I want to do is also get a good balance of like solid versus not so solid. So one of the things that I like about this Hero Arts, it's really just about textures, and there are some stamps in there that are solid, like these splats. And so I'm adding some of those to give a little bit of a more solid, splattering of images, and then that way it doesn't look quite so flat. Which is definitely one look that you can create, but I wanted it to look a little bit more dynamic, to have, because I almost feel like I want this to nearly be like almost the star of the card, because I actually, at the end of the day, probably more work went into making this panel than the rest of the card, as you'll see. And so I don't want it to just fade into the background. I do want some of it to pop. And just using my ink pad, I inked up the border so that I have this really nice, well-defined border on all four edges. And when I think artsy, I think splatter. Now, the VersaFine ink that I was using, the VersaFine Clair ink I was using, that is not water-based, so you can't really water that down and splatter with it. So I decided I'll just splatter with some white. And I got some really fine splatter, which I love, but then I wanted some larger splats. And so the fan brush is really good if you want just small splatters, but if you want some larger, almost drops, then you want to go up in size, get a larger paintbrush. And I just splattered with the Spellbinders. They're white. I can't remember what they call it, but it's nice and opaque. It does dry back a little bit because I'm splattering onto craft cardstock, which is very porous. I mean, it just drinks up that splatter. So it did fade back a little bit, but you could definitely tell that it's white splatter. And now I'm about to do the thing that is just really heartbreaking. So I really love how this panel came together. And I thought really the two things that I loved most about this panel that I made was the little postage stamp designs with the little bird and the little snail, which I stamped the image, but I also stamped some of those smaller words, like the 25 cents and the 1974, and I'm about to cover those up with this. So I'm gonna stamp out another front page from the superhero add-on. This is the front page stamp, and I'm going for old, so I actually I put this in my MISTI, but I'm not looking for it to be perfect. I actually want to leave some of those spots as incomplete, maybe a little faded even, because this is meant to look like an old and literally I'm gonna tear it up, torn up front page newspaper. And so after stamping that out, I'll use the now this part is going to be my sentiment. So I'm gonna use the happy birthday sentiment, and I do want this to be very, very clearly legible. So this I'm stamping enough times to get it super crisp. It only really took 2 stampings because I kind of did it lightly just to start to see how it looks, but then I decided, no, I think I would prefer that you really be able to read that because that is kind of the sentiment. And the coordinating die is really great. When you cut it out, it kind of makes it look like it's a folded up newspaper, so you get the extra little pages, you know, behind there. So that's kind of cool. And I need to age this newspaper. So I stamped it onto like a very light gray. This isn't white, but it's a very light gray cardstock, and I'm just gonna age it a little bit with again a bit of VersaFine Clear ink. This is a nice pigment ink, and I'm just going to just kind of dab with my sponge dauber. I'm not trying to get a lot of ink, and I'm not trying to get it to be perfectly smooth or consistent because things age at different, differently. Depends how much sun exposure or whatever. So I just want to get a little bit of aging on here. I tore off the bottom because when I think artsy, I also think, just tear stuff up. Rough things up a little bit. It is meant to be old, so I wanted to just emphasize that a little bit more with the torn edge. And sadly, where this is gonna go, it's gonna cover up my favorite parts of that background that I created, which, that's sometimes art as well. You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of Bob Ross. If you ever watch Bob Ross, he would paint this like beautiful, beautiful landscape. And then at the very end, he would do the bravery test, where in the foreground, he would paint this huge tree that blocks, a portion of this beautiful landscape that he just, spent however long painting. And he called it a bravery test because that's what it is. You just spend all this time creating this lovely, in his case, work of art. In my case, this lovely panel, and then cover it up with something in the foreground. But it gives your, in his case, Bob Ross's case, it gives the work of art some dimension because you have things in the foreground that capture your interest, and then you look deeper into the painting, and then you see the midground, the background, etc. For me, it's just your background is just a starting point, and it's one of those things where if you are not totally in love with it, then that's great because a portion of it's going to get covered up anyways, just like how my card ended up. But then on the flip side, it's nice to love something and then feel okay with covering it up because part of the joy was in the making of it. And that to me is what art journaling is. It's not maybe always about the final product, but about the process and how freeing it can be to create outside of the box, and then use those creations however you want to use them, which might include covering them up, altering them, tearing things up, etc. So I had a lot of fun with that one, and at least I'll have this video to remember that background by. Okay, so I'm well into my next card here, and this is the R in SPARC, which stands for recipe. Now, I have been putting out every once in a while a new recipe for card making, and the whole idea behind my recipe series is to create just the general methodology that you can follow if you get the gist of the recipe, but not have it be overly prescriptive to where you need to remember any dimensions. So basically, it's a rule, a concept, a technique, and then from there, once you get the gist of it, it's easy to apply to whatever size card you want to make, whatever project you're creating. This is recipe 3, which is the rule of thirds. And when I put this recipe card out there, I was actually originally inspired by another fabulous designer, Carly T. She does such beautiful, clean and simple cards. And one of the things that I noticed when I was studying her cards was what makes this so well balanced, even though it is so minimalistic. And one of the concepts that I came to was that rule of thirds, which I've heard, oftentimes. And one of the things that helps you with that, one of the tools that helps you with that is the Pear Blossom Press Cardmaker's T-square ruler. It comes in two sizes, A2 and A7. And I was chatting about my last card when this was happening on screen, but there are 2 dots on that T-square ruler that mark the 1/3 and 2/3. And so what I did was I found the center, because there's also a centering line on the card maker T-square. I found the center of this card. It's just an A2 panel. And I'm doing this directly onto the card base. So it's going to be so minimalistic that it's literally just the card base that I'm stamping onto. And then I found like 1/3 down from the top. And so that way I can more or less shift where I am stamping this focal image and my sentiment, so that it's roughly in that 1/3. It's above the half mark line and right between that and the 1/3. And that helps to really, I think, balance this out, so that directly centered in both directions, like left to right and top to bottom, I don't think this design would work or look quite as nice. But shifting it up a little bit so that it's more weighted towards, that top third. And in fact, I think I could have shifted up even more. So this is definitely kind of something that I'm still learning to get used to, is this whole rule of thirds is really easy to remember. But when it comes to clean and simple, I think it really helps because it's so minimalistic, and the placement of everything, I think, helps if it's just right. And it's really centered or really, squarely kind of in that 1/3 space there. And so it's a nuanced thing. I'm still learning, still practicing it. And that's the whole idea. It's just a general concept. And I think I have 6 recipes out right now. They're all on a playlist if you want to check them out. I'm going to do some really simple background coloring here. And I switched to my Memento markers because alcohol markers do tend to bleed all the way through. And this is my card base that I'm coloring onto. So I just wanted to go with a light hand and not and try to avoid the color bleeding through as much as possible. I did stamp the 1974 onto here, but because I colored in the background, you can't really see that. So I'm just drawing right over 1974 with my white gel pen marker to handwrite that back in. But I'm just tracing over the stamped line. and that worked out just fine. So it does read and does still look pretty nice. I just had to kind of go slow with it just to make sure I was tracing on the line. But yeah, this is such a simple card, very minimalistic, but I think with minimal cards, it does help to be a little bit more precise with things. So really taking the time to center it, really trying to position this so that it's in that upper third area, between half and upper third. I think it could have gone up maybe a smidge more, but I love how simple and easy that came together. Okay, so my last card is the C in SPARC. So C instead of a K. C standing for case, which does actually have two meanings. It can be clean and simple, but I'm using it as copy and share. One of the things I really love doing is being inspired by other people. And I have found that, as much content as I'm putting out, I haven't really been taking the time to really consume content and look at other people's cards and art and really, enjoy them. Partly because sometimes I feel like I don't have the time to watch, other creators' videos, and, if I'm catching, say, like a live stream or I'm watching a video, usually it's in the background and I'm more listening than I am watching. And so I've really enjoyed making it an intentional habit to case other people's cards and really enjoy other inspiration that is shared to our amazing community. This is a layout concept that I think really we kind of have to originate it back to Andy Warhol. So it's the whole idea of these 4 tiles that are, he uses some really bright, fun colors, and each of them is kind of like a negative almost print of something. Like there's the famous soup can, Campbell's soup can, I think is one of them. And so I've seen it a lot in art and in card making. This whole group of 4, and the way that I'm choosing to implement mine is fun colors. So these aren't necessarily colors that you would see birds in nature. And I've picked 4 colors that are part of the color wheel cardstock colors that you get as part of the kit. And then what I'm going to do is, again, because this design is going to be pretty minimalistic, I'm bringing out my card maker's T-square ruler again. And what I've done is, see those pink dots? Those mark the 1/3, 2/3. And I'm centering my little postage stamps on 1/3, 2/3. And it turned out so well. It's really, really quite lovely when you get that spacing right. And then I'm going to try the same this way, where it's shifted a little bit above the middle. And so it's a little bit top heavy. And just want to make sure that everything's nice and lined up, nice and squared off. And what I've done is I chose 4 colors, and then I'm mixing and matching so that every element that is part of one design actually has all 4 colors. So for example, that first upper left postage stamp, the background's pink, the frame is lime green, and the bird will be yellow, and then the little extra layer on the bird is orange. So it's got all 4 colors in that block. And then I mix it up so that every single little design has the same 4 elements to it, has the same 4 colors of cardstock, but in a different combination. And so I thought this would be kind of fun. The bird worked out to fit really nicely. and I pulled out my little dot setter from We Are Makers, and I'm just gonna add a bit of foam behind here. Oh my gosh, this dot setter, I'm really loving it. It makes quick work of picking up the foam, little foam dot from the liner, and then putting it. It's easier to put it onto the card rather than onto the back of the bird. And then it even, peels off the liner for you. Super easy peasy. Now, with hello, I don't want hello to be quite as dimensional as the birds, because these foam dots, they're rather dimensional. They are. I mean, I don't think that they will trigger extra postage, but I do feel like they are pretty thick. Probably maybe 3 millimeters thick. I mean, if this was all like a sheet of foam, it would be thick enough for like a shaker card. So pretty thick stuff. And I don't really want the hello to be quite as thick as that. The hello is from the Postbox die set, and so you get one die for kind of the background and the surround, and then you get another die that cuts the letters of the sentiment out. So here's a final look at all 5 cards that I created. I hope that these cards spark your creativity. This first one is a sketch card from Call Me Crafty Al's Sheetload of Cards, which is a special collaboration with Kendra's Card Challenge this month. My second card features my printables from the Easy Postage Printable Vintage Valentine collection, which will actually come out on the 15th of the month, but I'll leave a link to it anyways, and then you can grab it. By the way, on this note, I am transitioning my website from where it currently lives to Shopify, so that transition might be a little bit slow. All new things will be posted to the new store, and old things will slowly transition over. My third card was my Artsy card. I made a fun little background, which I bravely covered up a lot of, especially my favorite parts of it. The fourth card is following recipe number 3, the 1/3 rule. And nice, clean, and simple. And my last card is a copy and share of a design that I've seen very often, but I will attribute back to Andy Warhol as the original creator of. I hope you enjoyed my cards today. Links to everything will be in the description box below. And until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.